A long, long time ago, long before the fathers of our fathers were born, when the sun rose over quiet valleys and the rivers flowed gently through the fields, there was a land named Uzor-Ndu. Its forests whispered softly with the wind, and the mountains stood quietly over golden fields of yams. The river ran clear and calm, carrying the songs of the birds to the villages below. Life in Uzor-Ndu was gentle and serene. Children ran barefoot along soft paths, women sang as they carried water from the rivers, and men tended their farms with quiet hands, their hearts at peace under the slow, steady rhythm of the land. Trouble was not welcome in this land. The kingdom itself seemed to nurture calmness in every living thing. It was in this peaceful land that a man was born, a man whose very presence mirrored the serenity of Uzor-Ndu. His name was Ebube. Ebube was the only child of his parents, both long departed before he could truly know them. From them he inherited lands that stretched far and wide, fields heavy with golden yams, and granaries filled with the labor of generations. He was handsome, calm in every way, a quiet presence that drew people near without demanding it. Villagers trusted him, men respected him, and women wondered at him. His calmness was like the still river, deep, steady, and impossible to disturb. Ladies from near and far would try to catch his attention with beauty, laughter, or finery. They would flaunt themselves before him, hoping for even a glance. But Ebube always ignored them, not from pride, but because his heart quietly longed for someone he had only met once, a woman whose presence would one day stir his peaceful world. He had everything a man could desire: wealth, land, respect, and the gentle love of his people. Yet there was one thing missing, one spark that made his heart ache: a woman named Varkira from the neighboring village. Ebube had always dreamed of a life with Varkira. In his quiet mind, he imagined a life full of joy and laughter, a life of peace and warmth. He dreamed of waking each morning beside her, of sharing days filled with simple happiness, the taste of fresh yams, the smell of the river after rain, the soft songs of birds drifting through their home. He dreamed of a family that would grow under their care, children who would run barefoot in the sunlight, and evenings spent under the calm, gentle sky, hand in hand with the woman he longed for. But there was one problem, one thing that had troubled him more than the heat of summer, more than the storms that sometimes swept through Uzor-Ndu, one thing that had stolen his sleep and filled his nights with restless thoughts. Each time he thought to take a step forward toward Varkira, each time he imagined himself calling her name, that one thing would stop him, like an invisible chain wrapping itself around his heart, holding him back, refusing to let him move closer. Varkira was a beautiful woman. Her skin glowed like polished bronze under the sun, smooth and alive with light. Her hair fell in thick waves, catching the wind with each step, and around her waist and neck were beads, colorful and bright, dangling and chiming softly as she moved. Even the smallest motion made the beads sway, as if to announce her presence to the world. Her eyes shone with fire, and her lips curved into a smile that could soften the hardest heart. Yet all that beauty came with something fierce, something that made Ebube pause, his heart trembling with both fear and awe. Varkira was a fighter. She fought everywhere, against everyone. No one in the neighboring village dared challenge her. Young men, old men, women, even elders who thought themselves wise, she had beaten them all. Her strength was legendary, her courage untamed. She could strike down a man twice her size and leave a crowd in stunned silence. She fought with skill, with precision, with a ferocity that made the air itself seem to recoil. And it was that strength, that uncontrollable, untouchable force that bound Ebube like a chain. How could a man even hope to approach such a woman? How could he imagine himself living beside her, sleeping beside her, laughing with her, when she was the storm itself? Every time he tried to close the distance, his courage faltered. The thought of her striking him down, or worse, made his chest tighten and his feet freeze. And yet, he could not stop thinking of her. Her beauty, her light, her fire, it drew him as surely as the river drew the rain. Every glance he stole of her, every glimpse of the beads swinging around her waist, every flicker of her fierce smile, it was a pull he could not resist. The chain of fear held him back, yes, but it also made his longing sharper, hotter, heavier.
One evening, as he sat down by the mango tree beside his compound, Ebube made up his mind. He made up his mind to approach his fear. He made up his mind to face the woman he loved. He believed that maybe, just maybe, his love could be the reason she would change. That maybe his devotion could soften the fire in her heart. After sitting for a long while, lost in thought, and listening to the gentle rustle of the mango leaves above him, he stood up and went to visit his uncle. He told his uncle that he wanted to take a wife. His uncle's face brightened, a proud smile spreading across his features. "You have taken a bold step," he said. "I am happy for you." But when his uncle asked him who the maiden was, and Ebube mentioned the name Varkira, his reaction changed immediately. "Which Varkira are you talking about? I hope it's not the one we all know, the one from the neighboring village." "You are right, uncle. You guessed it correctly because she's the one," Ebube replied. His uncle's eyes widened in shock, and he stood with great force, beating his walking stick on the floor. "Have you gone mad?" he bellowed. "Do you want to die? Do you want to be killed by your own wife? A maiden that everyone has rejected, a maiden that young men like you have rejected, is who you want to make your wife? I have seen that you want to kill yourself before your time. I have seen that you want to close the lineage of my late brother, but I will not let that happen, because I will not let your plan work. I will not let you destroy yourself. I will not let you bring in a woman that will ruin your life." His uncle forbade him from ever mentioning that woman's name again. "That woman is the worst thing that can happen to any man," he said, his voice shaking with both anger and fear. "She beats old and young, men and women alike. She has no respect for elders. She is a manless woman. If she were the only woman on this earth, I would encourage you to remain single forever rather than marry her." Ebube listened, his heart heavy but steady. He understood very well the reason why his uncle was refusing to give his blessing for him to marry the woman in question. The reason his uncle was refusing to follow him to see the maiden's people. He knew the truth. Varkira's character was beyond repair. She was fearless, untamable, a fighter who struck down anyone in her path, women, men, elders, the young. She was dangerous, a force of nature that no ordinary man could control. And yet, Ebube could not turn away. He told his uncle how he felt about Varkira, how deeply he loved her, how the thought of her alone made him happy. He asked his uncle to stay by his side, to escort him to meet her people, to follow him so he could marry her. He believed with all his heart that maybe his love could be the reason she would change. But his uncle shook his head, firm and unyielding. "Love alone cannot change a bad woman," he said. "A bad woman will always remain a bad woman. She is without home training. How can you be happy with such a woman?" His uncle refused. He stood his ground, declaring that his nephew would not marry Varkira. Ebube stood up and replied to his uncle, his voice steady and unwavering. "It is Varkira or no one else," he said firmly. After saying that,
He turned and left the compound, returning to his own hut. His heart was full of determination, even as his mind raced with worry and longing. Days passed, yet Ebube's resolve did not waver. He kept distrusting his uncle, pleading with him, asking him to follow him to see Varkira's people. Day after day, night after night, morning after morning, he went to his uncle's house, back and forth, reminding him, persuading him, begging him to give his blessing. His persistence was relentless, and though his uncle remained firm for a long time, there came one fateful day when he finally relented. "I will follow you," his uncle said at last, his voice heavy with warning. "But there is one condition. Whatever comes out of this marriage, whatever troubles, heartbreaks, or calamities will have nothing to do with me. I wash my hands of it. You will carry the consequences on your own head." Ebube nodded without hesitation.
"I accept," he said. His heart leapt with hope, for at last he would take the step toward the woman he loved, toward Varkira, the one who had captured his heart so completely. In the days that followed, Ebube brought Varkira home as his new wife. His heart overflowed with joy, a joy he could barely contain. At last, truly at last, he was finally with the woman he loved, the only woman who had ever captured his heart. He made a silent promise to himself. He would never speak a word that might upset her, never say anything that could bring anger into their home. He would treat her like a queen, honor her, serve her, and make sure she lacked nothing a woman could ever desire. Varkira, on the other hand, tried to behave well, at least for a few days. She restrained herself. She spoke calmly. She moved gently. But as Ebube's uncle had warned, a wicked heart does not change simply because it wears a smile. A bad character can hide, but it does not disappear. And then, one fateful day, the storm began. That afternoon, Varkira served Ebube food. He sat down eagerly, smiling, ready to taste the food she had prepared with her own hands. But the moment he took the first bite, his expression changed. He coughed violently, spat the food out, and quickly grabbed a cup of water, drinking it all at once. "Pepper, pepper, too much pepper," he gasped, fanning his mouth. "Varkira, please, more water. I need more water. There's too much pepper in this food." But Varkira did not move. She sat completely still, staring at him. Her gaze was cold, sharp, deadly. If eyes could wound, I swear Ebube would have collapsed where he sat. Panicking, he jumped up to get water himself. But in his haste, his leg struck the plate of food. It fell and scattered across the floor. And that was the mistake he should never have made. Varkira rose slowly. Fury burned in her eyes. Her silence was more frightening than shouting. Then she exploded. "I served you food and you threw it away? My food? Do you know what it cost me to go to the market? Do you know what it took to prepare that meal?" She grabbed him violently, dragging him down and throwing him to the floor. Her strength was terrifying, far beyond what any ordinary woman should possess. She struck him again and again, her anger pouring out without restraint. Ebube curled into himself, helpless. He looked like a man who wished the earth would swallow him whole. Yet, even while being beaten, he kept pleading weakly. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean to throw it. There was too much pepper. Please, mercy, water. I need water." His voice trembled. His throat burned. His eyes watered uncontrollably. But Varkira showed no mercy. She beat him without mercy, blow after blow, until at last Ebube managed to tear himself free and run out of the compound. But escape did not save him. Behind him came Varkira, raging like a storm, her breath hot with fury, a sharp cutlass gripped tightly in her hand. She pursued him through the open paths of the village, her footsteps thundering behind him. She did not care that people were watching. She did not care that doors were opening, that heads were turning, that the entire village stood still to witness the disgrace unfolding before them. Men stopped farming. Women paused beside their cooking fires. Children froze in their games. All eyes followed this strange and terrifying sight. A newly married wife chasing her husband with a cutlass like prey fleeing a hunter. As Ebube and Varkira ran past them, murmurs rose among the villagers. "I knew it," one old woman whispered, shaking her head. "I knew that the day he brought this woman home, I knew he only brought trouble into his house." Another man scoffed. "Did we not warn him? Did we not tell him what she was? Now, look at him, running for his life like a hunted goat." A group of women standing by the roadside muttered among themselves. "That is what he chose for himself," one said flatly. "Yes," another replied. "He knew she was trouble, and yet he still married her. Let him enjoy what he has chosen." A third one added, "He has invited fire into his home. Now let him learn how hot it burns." But Ebube heard none of their words clearly. Fear pounded in his ears louder than their voices. His legs trembled beneath him as he ran, not knowing where else to go, until instinct carried him straight to the one place he believed he might be safe. His uncle's compound. He stumbled through the entrance, breathless, terrified, his voice breaking as he shouted, "Uncle, uncle, uncle, where are you? Save me! Uncle, please help me!" His uncle stepped out from his hut, startled by the panic in his nephew's voice. But before the old man could even ask what had happened, Ebube rushed past him and ran straight inside the hut, slamming himself into its shadowed safety like a frightened child hiding from thunder. Moments later, Varkira stormed into the compound. Her chest rose and fell heavily. Her eyes burned like coals in a furnace. Her voice thundered across the compound as she shouted, "Ebube, come out of that hut and face me. Or do you want me to come inside and drag you out myself? If I do that, you will not like what happens next. Come out on your own and face me." Ebube's uncle stared at her, stunned, not only by her boldness, but by her complete lack of shame. "Abomination in the form of a woman," he said coldly. "That is what you are. Are you not ashamed of yourself, chasing your newly married husband across the whole village, trying to beat him?" His voice hardened. "Leave my compound this minute before I do something I will regret." But Varkira glanced at him as if he were a fly speaking. Her lips curled with irritation. "Old man, I do not have time for you. I am not here for you. Go inside that hut and bring out your nephew. He should come out here and face me." Her voice dropped into a dangerous tone. "Because if I go inside that hut and drag him out myself, you, yes, you who are standing there talking, will also have me to contend with." She stepped forward, her grip tightening around the cutlass. "So if you know what is good for you, go inside and tell your nephew to come out immediately. I would rather give my name to a goat than spare him today. If I do not make him regret throwing away my food, then I am not the real Varkira, the strongest maiden of my land." Silence fell. Ebube's uncle stood frozen, hands folded, disbelief written across his face. Never in all his years had he seen such shameless fury in a woman or such madness in a marriage. Slowly, reluctantly, Ebube stepped out from the hut. His body trembled. His eyes were swollen with fear. He barely had time to take 2 steps into the open before Varkira lunged at him. She struck him like lightning. With one hand, just one, she grabbed him, lifted him, and slammed him to the ground. Dust burst into the air around them. Then she began pounding him, mercilessly, like yam under a heavy pestle. Blow after blow. Her fists fell like stones. Her strength was terrifying. Her rage had no limit. She beat Ebube until he could barely breathe, until he could barely move, until his body lay weak and broken against the earth. Only then did she stop. She stood over him, breathing heavily, staring down at the bruised and battered man who loved her more than life itself. "You see this nonsense you tried today," she said coldly. "Throwing away my food, the food I suffered to prepare? Try it again, and your people will bury your corpse." With that, she turned and stormed out of the compound. Silence remained behind her. On the ground lay Ebube, bruised, injured, beaten mercilessly by the woman he loved the most. His body trembled, his skin was swollen, his strength was gone. His uncle stood still, staring at him. Disgust filled his chest. Anger burned in his heart. And beneath it all, a deep, heavy sorrow. He had warned Ebube. He had pleaded with Ebube. But Ebube had chosen Varkira. And now, the price of that choice lay broken at his feet. His uncle stared at him for a long moment, breathing heavily, his chest rising and falling with anger that words could barely contain. "Did you see your life?" he finally said, his voice thick with disbelief. "No, Ebube, did you truly see your condition after marrying your so-called lover?" He pointed sharply at the bruises swelling across Ebube's arms, at the dust clinging to his torn clothes, at the trembling weakness in his legs. "This," the old man continued, "this is what I feared. This is the very reason I stopped you, the very reason I pulled your ear and whispered words of wisdom to you. But you refused to listen. Now look at you, lying on the ground, battered by your own wife like a criminal being punished." His voice hardened. "I warned you. I told you to find a decent maiden, but no, you chose a bulldog for a wife." He struck his staff against the ground for emphasis. "Stand up from there and go home. Go and chase that woman out of your compound. She is not fit to be a wife. She is not fit to be a mother. Go and do what is needful. That is the only way to wash away the shame she has poured upon your head today." He leaned closer, his voice dropping into a firm command. "I am sure many people saw her chasing you with a cutlass. Your dignity has been dragged through the dust. Only by sending her away will your respect be restored in the eyes of the people of this land. So go home and drive her out." For a moment, silence hung between them. Then Ebube slowly pushed himself up, wincing slightly as he stood. "Chase who away?" he asked. His uncle blinked. "Who should I chase away, uncle?" Ebube repeated. "My own wife?" He shook his head quickly. No, that cannot happen. How can you even say such a thing? You know I love her. I love her deeply. I love everything about her." He placed a hand over his chest, speaking with strange sincerity. "Even when she was beating me, I was enjoying it. It felt like she was romancing me all over my body. Her hands are very soft, very, very soft. It was as if she did not even have bones in them." He smiled faintly, as though remembering something pleasant. "Uncle, do not worry. I am fine." The old man recoiled slightly, staring at him in disbelief. I cannot believe what my ears have just heard, he muttered. Something I witnessed with my own naked eyes. The way she pounded you like yam in a mortar. And you are calling that romance? His voice rose again, sharp and firm. You must chase that wicked woman away. Whether you like it or not, she cannot remain in that compound. But Ebube quickly raised his hands in pleading. Uncle, please stop saying that. Do not ask me to send my wife away. That woman is my everything. She is my whole world. If she leaves me, I will die. His voice softened, filled with stubborn devotion. What happened today is part of love. Couples fight sometimes. That is normal. So please, stop talking about chasing her away. That will never happen. That was the last word he said to his uncle before turning his back and walking away. His uncle also left him a last word that said, "Chase her away on your own, or I will report this matter to the king and she will be chased out by the villagers themselves."
When Ebube stepped into his compound, he found his wife pacing back and forth restlessly. She looked like someone who was ready to bring down the roof of the house. Her anger filled the air around her like a storm waiting to break. He stood far away from her, staring quietly, carefully, as if even breathing too loudly might provoke her. Then slowly, he dropped to his knees. He began to beg. He promised his wife that if she forgave him this time, he would never throw away her food again, whether by mistake or not. He pleaded over and over, his voice trembling, his head bowed low, begging her to forgive him. Varkira stepped closer to him, her shadow falling over where he knelt. "If I call you a selfish man, it will seem as if I am insulting my own husband. Tell me, how can you be having a small issue with your wife, and instead of facing it like a man, you run out of the compound?" Her voice grew sharper. "You ran like a baby and made me chase you around the village. Now the villagers will think I am a bad wife. They will think I want to kill you. How can you give them a reason to think I am wicked, to think I am maltreating you?" She folded her arms, anger burning in her eyes. "It is because of you that your uncle insulted me today. He poured insults on me because of you. What kind of man are you? Did you marry me only to make me look bad in the eyes of your people? Did you bring me into this land so they will laugh at me?" Ebube bowed even lower, his voice breaking as he pleaded. "I am sorry. I am truly sorry, Varkira. Please forgive me. I will never do such a thing again. I will never run away again. I will never throw away your food again, even by mistake. I promise you it will never happen again. Please forgive me." Ebube begged for a long time before Varkira's anger finally subsided. The next morning, Varkira and Ebube's sleep was interrupted by loud voices coming from outside. They woke up and went out to see what was happening. There, they saw many villagers gathered in their compound. Young women, old women, men both young and old, even Ebube's uncle was there. They all stood together singing a sorrowful but firm song. "Varkira, a bad woman. Varkira, a bad woman. Varkira, a bad woman. She will leave our land today whether she likes it or not. She is a bad woman. She will leave our land." It turned out that Ebube's uncle indeed had reported yesterday's incident to the king, who immediately declared that Varkira must vacate their land at once. According to the king's decree, her actions were an abomination in their land. Their land, he said, was a calm and peaceful land. They did not welcome trouble. They did not tolerate disorder.
and since Varkira had brought trouble into their land, it was better she left immediately before something worse was done to her. The villagers shouted in fury, commanding Varkira to go inside the hut, gather her belongings, and leave their village that very moment. Again and again, they repeated that their land was peaceful and a woman bitter like her would never be welcome there.
Ebube stepped forward and asked his uncle why he reported his wife to the king. His uncle replied that he already knew Ebube would never obey him, that he would never chase his wife away to restore his dignity. That was why he himself took the matter to the king, because in their land it is an abomination for a woman to beat her husband and chase him with a cutlass. And now the uncle said this was a direct order from the king himself. She must leave their land or something worse would happen to her. She must leave and never return. She was a bad wife. The villagers agreed loudly. A bad wife would never be welcome in their land. They repeated themselves and ordered Varkira to go inside the house immediately, bring out her things, and prepare to be escorted out of the land that very moment. Varkira was frightened, truly frightened. She had never imagined the people of this land would take yesterday's incident so seriously, or that Ebube's uncle would report her. If she had known the matter would grow this serious, she would never have caused such trouble. Not that she feared them when it came to fighting, but she had to secure this marriage at all costs. If she was sent back to her people, they would not accept her. In the land she came from, once a woman is married, she does not return except for brief visits. Apart from visits, she is never welcomed back. This terrified her deeply. If she were chased out of this land, where would she go? What would become of her? She was overwhelmed with fear. She wanted to beg for mercy, but one look at the villagers' faces silenced her. Their expressions were hard, cold, unyielding. She did not know what to do or how to save herself this time. Silently, she swore within her heart that if the gods saved her from this situation, she would change. She would become a different woman. Because if she were thrown out, she was finished, completely finished. She would be rejected in her husband's land and rejected in her own land. She would have nowhere to go.
Ebube stood close to his wife. He looked at her face and saw the fear written clearly upon it. He could feel her trembling. He stepped forward and began begging the villagers. He pleaded with them to forget what happened yesterday. He said they were not fighting, that they were only playing, just a husband and wife play. He claimed it was a game between them, a game where the wife carries a cutlass and chases her husband. He called it a game. But the villagers were not blind. They could see the bruises covering his body. They could see the pain in his movements. They could see the truth. They replied that the king's order must be obeyed. She must leave. She must leave peacefully, or she would leave in pieces. I said we are not fighting, Ebube repeated desperately. Can't you understand me? She was not beating me. She has done nothing wrong. We were only playing. Go back to the king and tell him it was not a fight. His uncle stepped forward and told the villagers that Ebube was lying. He said that right before his own eyes, Varkira attacked his nephew so fiercely she nearly killed him. Some women who had seen Varkira chasing Ebube the previous day also stepped forward. They testified that the way she chased him with a cutlass, had she caught him, she would have sliced him apart. The villagers murmured in agreement. The king's order must be obeyed. One elder commanded the women to go inside and bring Varkira's belongings outside. The women stepped forward, ready to storm into the hut and begin throwing her things out. But they were stopped by Ebube, who immediately blocked the entrance. He stood firmly at the doorway and spoke. "I will not let any of you throw my wife away. She is my wife, and none of you have the right to come into my compound and chase her away." But the villagers were not ready to listen. Their aim was to obey the king's command, and nothing was going to stop them from doing that, not even Ebube. The women pushed Ebube aside and went into the hut. Soon, they began bringing Varkira's belongings outside. They threw her bags, her wrappers, and her beads onto the ground. "Bring her," another elder shouted. The women once again stepped forward to seize Varkira. Once again, Ebube moved forward and stopped them. He took Varkira's hand in his and spoke with firm resolve. "If you all wish to chase my wife out of this village, then all of you should also prepare to do the same to me, because I will be going with her. If you chase my wife out of this village, have it in mind that you will also be chasing me away." The villagers were stunned. Then anger spread among them. They were trying to protect Ebube from this bad woman, yet he was choosing to leave the village because of her. "You must be out of your mind to think I will let you leave this land with this woman you call your wife," Ebube's uncle replied sharply. Varkira stood there shaken by Ebube's words. She looked at him, and for the first time, she felt something in her heart that resembled love. But deep inside, she knew she might have loved him too late. Now, perhaps nothing could save her from the king's judgment or from the will of the villagers. "Please, my beloved elders, my people, I know you are all looking after me. I ask only one favor. Give me a chance to speak with the king. Maybe I can make him change his mind. Please, I beg you all, one chance to speak with the king." The villagers were still angry. They still wanted to carry out the king's command and drive Varkira away. But they could not ignore what Ebube had just declared, that he was ready and willing to live with her. They could not lose their beloved son, their brother, their own child of the land. So, after murmuring among themselves, they agreed with one voice to take both of them to meet the king, saying that only the king has the final say. They took Ebube and his wife to the king's palace. The moment they arrived, Ebube fell flat on his knees. He wailed on the floor, crying uncontrollably, begging the king with all his strength. Tears poured down his face like rain. He cried like a little child, helpless, broken, desperate. Anyone who saw him would be shocked to see a man pleading so deeply for the woman who had nearly killed him. He begged the king to spare Varkira. The king slowly stood up. His face was stern, deeply displeased. "You are the son of this land, and you know very well that in this Uzor-Ndu kingdom we do not welcome trouble. This land is known to be the most peaceful kingdom. After knowing all this, what makes you think I will spare this evil woman you brought into this land as your wife?" Ebube crawled closer and clutched at the king's feet, bowing his head again and again. His tears fell freely onto the palace floor. "My king, please, spare her just this once," he cried. "If she leaves, I don't know what will become of me. I cannot live without her. I cannot imagine life without her. She is the only woman I have ever loved. I promise I will do everything in my power to make sure her actions are never repeated again." Varkira stood there, frozen, watching the husband she had almost killed, pleading for her. Tears rolled silently down her face. She said nothing, but her expression spoke louder than words. Fear, regret, desperation, they all lived in her eyes. She knew very well that if she were driven out of this land, her life was finished, completely finished. Her own people would never accept her back. She would belong nowhere, to no one. In her heart, she wished, desperately wished, that the king would give her one more chance, just one chance to mend her ways. All her life, she had been nothing but trouble. From childhood, she had fought, beaten, and hurt people without remorse. Perhaps, she thought, perhaps this was how the gods chose to punish her. But deep within herself, she swore if she were given a second chance, she would never waste it. Ebube continued begging again and again, but the king remained unmoved. A troublesome woman will not be welcomed in this land, he declared. He looked at Ebube, a young man blessed with land, yam barns, wealth, and honor. A man who had everything, yet because of his wife, his reputation had been shattered. Because of his wife, people would mock him behind his back. They would call him weak, a man beaten by his own woman. The king thought deeply. If he forgave her, she might become even worse. He had seen how deeply Ebube loved her, a man who could cry, beg, and break himself completely for a woman. That was love, the kind that tolerates everything, even pain, even humiliation. The king did not want Ebube to suffer such disgrace again, so he hardened his heart. My decision stands, he said firmly. She must leave this land. My order will be carried out. Ebube slowly rose to his feet, his face wet with tears. Fine, he said weakly. If you chase my wife away, then I will go with her. I cannot leave her alone. He turned to follow her, but the king raised his hand. At once, his guards seized Ebube and held him tightly.
Hold him, the king commanded, and take the woman away. And that was what happened. Ebube struggled wildly in the grip of the guards. He fought with all his strength, twisting, pushing, pulling, doing everything he could to break free. But the guards were too strong, far too strong. He was helpless and powerless. In pain, he watched as the villagers, the women of the land, dragged Varkira away. They pulled her without mercy, without stopping, without listening to her cries. They left her at the boundary that separated their land from the neighboring village. That was where they left her. Varkira returned to her people, but just as she had feared, they rejected her. They did not welcome her. Instead, they treated her even worse than her husband's people had. The women came forward with brooms, striking her again and again. Some swept the ground violently at her feet, driving her away as if she were dirt that must be removed. Others shouted curses, reminding her that she had brought shame upon their land. According to their tradition, a woman rejected by her husband's people must not return in disgrace. So they chased her. They chased her until she could no longer stand. They chased her until her voice broke from crying. They chased her out of the land where she was born. With nowhere left to go and no one left to call her own, Varkira wandered into the deep forest. There, among towering trees and whispering winds, she built herself a shelter from leaves and broken branches. The forest became her only home. Silence became her only companion. Day after day, she wept. She wept for her pride. She wept for her cruelty. Alone in the thick wilderness, surrounded by shadows and memories, Varkira finally understood the weight of her actions. And she cried and cried until her tears felt endless. Back in the Uzor-Ndu kingdom, Ebube searched everywhere for his wife. He searched the markets, he searched the farms, he searched the distant paths and lonely roads. He even traveled to her people's village to hope to see her. But there, he heard a painful truth. Varkira had been chased away, completely cast out. The news shattered him. Ebube felt hollow, broken, useless, like a man who had failed the one person he was supposed to protect. And so he swore to punish himself for not being able to protect his wife.
And from that day forward, he stopped eating. He stopped working at his farm. He stopped caring for the land that once brought him pride. His farms withered. His strength faded. His spirit slowly sank into darkness. Soon, sickness overtook him. He refused medicine. He refused help. He refused life itself. Herbalists came and went, bringing roots, leaves, and healing mixtures, but Ebube turned them all away. Nothing mattered to him anymore. One morning, news reached the king. Ebube's uncle brought the heartbreaking news to him. "My king," he said, "a son of this land is dying. He refuses treatment. His heart is already leaving this world. Please help him. Save my late brother's only child." The king decided to visit him at once. When he arrived, he saw a shadow of the strong young man he knew. Ebube lay weak and pale, barely holding on to life. The king asked him why he refused to be treated. He asked if he wished to die because of the woman who had been banished. With a trembling voice, Ebube begged him, "Please, bring back my wife. Forgive her. Let her return to me. If she does not come back, I will not live." The king said nothing. He turned and walked away. Back in his palace, seated upon his throne, the king thought deeply. Never in all his years had he seen love like this. A love so strong that a man would choose death over separation. A love so deep that even pain could not break it. Yes, Varkira had done wrong. Yes, her actions were an abomination, but he was king, and the law lived within him. At last, he made his decision. He would give her one final chance. If she failed again, she would be banished forever. The king's guards searched far and wide, through villages, across fields, deep into wild lands, until they found her. Weak, thin, barely breathing. She lay on the forest floor, exhausted from sorrow and survival. They brought her back. Before the king, she trembled like a fallen leaf. He warned her sternly, "This is your final chance. Never again raise your hand against your husband. Never again bring shame upon this land. If you fail, mercy will never come twice." She bowed low, tears falling freely. The king and the villagers escorted her back to Ebube's compound. When Ebube saw her, he rose at once, though sickness clung to his body. He did not care. He ran to her and held her tightly. Tears poured down his face as he thanked the king again and again, blessing his reign for generations yet unborn. Varkira knelt before them all. She promised to change. She promised to honor her husband. She promised to live in peace with him. She swore by the gods themselves. And this time, she kept her word. She became gentle. She understood that marriage carried responsibility, respect, restraint, and honor for the land she now belonged to. Peace returned to their home. Laughter replaced sorrow. Love replaced pain. And beneath quiet night skies, they shared stories, dreams, and gratitude for the second chance they had been given. And so, Ebube and his beloved wife lived in harmony for the rest of their days. Their story became a lesson told from generation to generation, that love can suffer, that pride can destroy, but love, especially from the husband, can always protect the wife. Ebube loved his wife, and truly, his love alone is what saved Varkira. The end.